About 20 years ago, maybe a little over 20 years ago, I went to this seminar. And like many seminars, this one was at an exotic location. And I was sitting at the bar on my first day there. And I was talking to the bartender. And the bartender's name was Fred. And he was telling me how proud he was that he could make a smoothie without needing to measure the ingredients. And he could eyeball everything, so after he blended the drink, it came up perfectly aligned with the top of the blender without any spillage. The bar was outside. It had four sides. This side was the TV. This side was my side. The other side, past the other side of the bar, I could see an outdoor patio of a restaurant that was part of the resort. On this side was the beach. Behind me was the office where people checked in. On this side were all the bungalows where people stayed. And in between the two sides of the bar was a shelf with all the bottles on there. And the reason I remember all of this like it was yesterday in a very vivid picture in my mind is because I made a conscious decision to remember Fred's name before he told me his name. According to evolutionary psychology, our memory was really meant to be a passive tool, not an active tool, a passive significant event collection device. We go through life, we have experiences, and anything significant that pops up, we automatically remember it. We don't just automatically remember the event, we automatically remember all the details around the event. Because when we're going through life and we see an event in the future, an unexpected problem, we'll automatically reference all the memories that this problem reminds us of. And because we remember everything contextually, we'll remember all the details of these past events, and that will give us the biggest chance to solve this problem. This is a completely passive process. No ancient caveman had to go home at night and take notes on what happened that day so they could remember what to do in the future. It happened automatically. The more significant the event, the stronger the memory. The more emotionally rich the event, the stronger the memory. This is why ancient cave people taught their kids through storytelling. They didn't just give them dry data, they told them stories, because stories replicate the significant emotional feelings you have when you have these significant life events. You probably remember your favorite movie a lot more easily than you can remember the stuff in your biology textbook. So you can understand this process to replicate this process in the modern world so you can more easily remember things. So you can more easily remember people's names by taking a memory you want to remember and making it as similar to our past memory structure as possible. And that's what I did with Fred. Before I heard his name, I made a conscious decision to remember his name. And so I said, "Hey, I'm George." He said, "Hey, I'm Fred." And as soon as he said, "I'm Fred," I just started saying Fred, Fred, Fred in my mind. And I waited for my brain to produce some kind of association, something I associated with the name Fred. And what I came up with was the scene from Pulp Fiction, where Bruce Willis, his character Butch, rides up on a motorcycle. His girlfriend says, "Whose motorcycle is this?" He says, "It's not a motorcycle, it's a chopper." She said, "Whose chopper is this?" He says, "Fred's." And she says, "Who's Fred?" And he says, "Fred's dead, baby. Fred's dead." That's what popped into my mind. Fred's dead, baby. Fred's dead. So I looked at Fred with his dreadlocks, and I imagined a bunch of dead people hanging from his dreadlocks. And every time he turned his head around, the dead people would swing all over the place. And when he was making his smoothie drinks, his famous smoothie drinks, he would put dead people into the smoothie drinks. And I created that image in my mind, and that solidified everything, the entire context of that memory. Everything around that memory was solidified because of that picture I made. Because I tried to replicate our ancient memory structure of a significant event. And so here's how you do the process. Here's how you can remember people's names very easily. Step one is make a conscious decision before you hear somebody's name that you're going to remember their name. If you wait till after you hear your name and like a week later, it's not going to work. You have to make a conscious decision, a deliberate decision, before you hear their name that you're going to remember their name. As soon as you hear their name, just repeat it to yourself over and over in your mind whenever you have a chance until an association pops up. Allow your brain to give you that association. Don't try to create one yourself. Just say Fred, 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 or whatever, and wait for the association to pop up. Once that association pops up, then take that association and input any kind of gruesome, painful sexual details that you can to make that much more vivid, like an ancient significant event. And then take that augmented visualization that's sexualized and painful and gruesome and attach it to their body somehow through some kind of association. And once you do that, then you're done. Then you'll remember that person's name forever. And if you see them 5 years later, you'll say, hey, Mary, how's it going? And they'll be like, well, who are you? Mary, we met at that conference 5 years ago with that lady up on stage with the yellow skirt who was using yo-yo tricks to demonstrate centripetal motion. And she'll be like, well, how do you remember all that? And when you remember people's names, you will be perceived as much more socially competent, because Dale Carnegie said that a person's name is the sweetest sound they will ever hear. So if you not only remember people's names, but use their name conversationally, use their name when you see them again, they will be very, very impressed. Now, this does take a little bit of practice. And the way you practice is simple. Open up 2 browsers on your computer. One with a bunch of random pictures of social situations. Another with a random list of common names. And just randomly pick a person, randomly pick a name, and just go through the process. Say a name, pretend that this person's name is this name right here. Say the name until you get an association. Then take that association, make it gruesome, make it painful, make it sexual, make it funny, make it fantastically funny, cartoonish, and then associate that picture with that person's body, something on their body, their face, their eyes, their clothing, their hair. And then to practice this a few times. And all it takes is to practice this a few times, and then it'll be second nature. And then you'll have a skill that very few people have, the ability to remember people's names. And once you start to demonstrate to other people that you can remember people's names, you'll be perceived as much more charismatic, much more engaging, and a much nicer person to be around. So try this out and see how well it works. If you'd like to learn more about how to significantly improve your life, check out the links below. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you next time.